Picked up by Reed on the switch. Pickett. Deep fadeaway. 23 for Pickett.
Well, Pickett would end up with a 25 for Penn State. Jalen Pickett. It's all over now, thankfully. In Happy Valley, Michigan loses it by 22, a final of 83-61. Welcome in to the Michigan Basketball Postgame Live. I'm Dennis Fithian, and a tough one. I don't know the way to look at this one, except tough, very tough for U of M as they play their worst game of the year. They've got some competition with the worst game of the year as you take a look at it. It was only last month that they lost to Central at home, Central out of the Mid-American Conference. That seemed like it was a low part of the season because they were at home and the way they played. Back in November, they played a horrible game. It was it was like this one, a lot like this one. Like the Central game was close and they lost, and it was at home. This one was on the road, like at Penn State. They got killed, and, there was nothing. Jet at the beginning was all right. But way back in November, Michigan played maybe their best game against Pitt. Then the next night they had to play Arizona State, and Arizona State just smashed them. And it was such a rout. It was like, man, this is one of the worst games that, I've ever seen Michigan play. Until today, they've got some competition, and, that's not what you like, if you're a Michigan fan talking about, well, this is one of the worst games ever. No, well, earlier in the year, they had one of the worst games ever. Is it one of the worst seasons ever? That's a little bit, it feels like it. When you have a game like this, it feels like it's one of the worst games ever. And, the reality, I don't know how many, like you're hoping, like I had Michigan as a 39% chance of making the tournament heading into this game today. But, they had a lot of games like this one in particular. They beat Penn State a little while back at Chrysler. And this was the kind of game where you looked at the numbers and you're thinking, hey, this is at least a winnable game for Michigan. And they needed to stack some wins. And if they were able to do that, then, being on the outside looking in, heading into February, you might felt like, hey, look at last year. They didn't look like they were going to do anything and get into the tournament. They did, and they won 2 games. But I don't think anybody, if I had 100 people who were sitting out there that watched Michigan, that liked Michigan and said, hey, do you think Michigan's going to get into the tournament? Do you think anybody would raise their hand and say yes? I mean, like if you're an eternal optimist, you say, well, maybe they can win the Big Ten tournament. Maybe they can turn some things around. I don't know. Like, I don't think anybody would say that. I think everybody would be like, no, it looks like it's not going to happen. So then you start talking about the future of the program, and that always includes the head coach. And, there'll be some groaning for sure. And it will be, I would say a lot of it will be deserved, but I don't think that Michigan would be making a move with the head coach after this year. But I think you get into next year and you have a similar season like you have right now. And then you're looking at the players that are on the roster and that the players that are coming in, and you just overall hope. And I think that, Ward Manuel, if he's the athletic director, would have a decision to make. But that's putting the cart in front of the horse when it comes down to it. But that is like the main thing. I don't know. Like I say, the main thing that Michigan basketball fans will talk. It's the main thing that people talk about that are looking at Michigan. Does the Michigan basketball fan look at it like that? Is that the number one thing they're thinking about? Like if this happens, if this season ends up going like it is, careening off into not making the tournament and they don't make it next year, is that the top thing about, hey, looking for a next head coach or hoping Juwan goes to the NBA? Maybe it's up there. Certainly you're talking about it. You can always talk about it with us. There's Logan saying we got rolled. Cameron saying this team is awful. Howard's not a college coach. Anything that I would say, sound like I'm, going to defend Juwan Howard this year or today's, the team is not very good. this year. Like Hunter Dickinson and Jed Howard, they're pretty good. They're good players. And I think the two of the freshmen in Terrace Reed Jr. and I think the point guard, Doug McDaniel, they're about what you would expect. Guys coming in, they show them some flashes. They're not, they look like they can play in the Big Ten and, the future could be all right for those guys. But after that, what are we talking about? Like the guys that are out there, Jalen Wellen, you can talk about him getting injured in London, but who knows what he would have been. It wasn't like he was really lighting it up. Kobe Buffkin has come along. There's three. You've got Dickinson and you've got Jed Howard. You got Kobe Buffkin. So those are a nice three. But, after that, Terrence Williams II, you want more from him. Joey Buckets, Joey Baker, the college transfer, not getting it done. I mean, you can pretty much go down the list. We saw Isaiah Barnes the other day. He doesn't look like he's ready to play college basketball. Yusuf Kayat, the freshman coming in, he's been a little bit hurt, but I don't know. Maybe there'd be something there. Greg Glenn III has played like 2 minutes all year long. You would think if he had something, they would have him out there. Jace Howard makes a play once a month. Nice kid. But, are you looking for some contributions from Jace as a junior? You'd like to see more from him. So that gets us down to what? Will Cheddar, who is a fan favorite. Will Cheddar couldn't get in the game today. I don't know. That's one of the questions I'd have for Juwan Howard. How come you don't play Cheddar more? Your team struggles on offense and on defense. It's not like everybody's like some lockdown defender or something. This team is there's only one team that gives up more points in the Big Ten. Why not a little bit more Cheddar? But so they're not a really good team overall. They don't have much talent. The three guys that I mentioned, and then after that, it's you're going to get worked over by other teams like Penn State when you have to go on the road. And the thing about like Juwan's not a good coach. I don't know when the first year when Michigan, when it was the pandemic, he looked like he was a pretty good coach, and half of those players were his. A lot of people want to say that was all John Beilein's. That was the DNN. All right, I know, like people love saying that. But the second year, when Michigan went to the Elite Eight, they looked really good that year, and they looked well coached, and they ran plays, and so good players. There's a part of that, that good players make you look good as a head coach. But I liked how that team played, and they really looked like. They could identify players in the they didn't have a transfer portal of transfers. Remember, they hit the jackpot that year. Juwan went out, and the staff, which is the same staff, got Mike Smith and Shawnee Brown. Those guys were great for U of M. But so I'm not trying to make any excuses or anything else. But when it's just flat out like Howard and everybody can't coach, I don't know. Is it the players or the coach? I'm going to say it's the players, but then you can go back and say, hey, he's the one that's giving him the scholarship. So it's the coach and the player. So the argument about which one is, which is the chicken or egg or anything else, it ultimately comes back to the coach. So I just went on and on about all that. It's, the coach has to take the blame for this. Troy asking if Coach Beilein spoiled us. We are used to a better product out on the floor. Yeah, well, John Beilein was a tremendous coach, and he was ahead of his time. And remember this about John Beilein, though, and this is another thing for Juwan, is that John Beilein didn't make the tournament every year. And even after Michigan made the championship game, they didn't make the tournament. And then another year, they made it as one of the, play-in games, which to me technically is not getting into the tournament. But, yeah, I mean, Beilein was tremendous. And, Michigan is, taking it on the chin, however you want to look at it, this year. So I don't know about John. It's tough following, and they say this in sports, and most of the time it seems like it's true. It is tough to follow a legend. And John Beilein, he was a legend. Let's look at this game. I'll say quickly. We'll look at it. Jet Howard came back from his ankle injury after missing their last game, and he looked good. I mean, he was on fire. He hit his 7 of 8 in the first half. He had 18 points, only missed one shot. He looked fabulous. But U of M, and they were in this game And then they just coughed up an 18-2 run to end the half. You're never going to win any games doing that. And they were down 17 at the break. That was the ball game. But you always think, well, halftime, maybe something will be a little bit different. But Penn State came out and picked up right where they left off. The Nittany Lions, hot start in the second half. They started out with 11-2 run. Penn State was up 26, and it was over. And if you didn't think it was over in the first half after the 18-2 run, when they came out and slapped the 11-2 run on them, and they were up 26, then it was over. And so it was over, and it ends up being, 22-point loss. Could have been a 32-point loss, maybe 42 if Penn State wanted to do it. That's how bad it was. And in the end, 83-61, Michigan falls to 11-10. They're now even in the Big Ten with their record at 5-5. That's where Penn State is as well with their W. But Penn State at 14-7, and Michigan, any of those net rankings or any of the other things that you want to look at, I put the Ken Palm numbers heading into this game. Not going to be any better for Michigan after getting drubbed like they did here. They're at 58, and Penn State at 52. I'm going to get that upcoming schedule for you. I'm also going to look at the tournament chances for the Maize and Blue as well. And that is brought to you by the Maize and Blue Reviews. Good afternoon, Michigan football and basketball, which is on the feed that you are watching or listening to right now, 1 o'clock weekdays. That means we'll be with you tomorrow. Let's look at a little bit more feedback. Logan misses John Beeline more and more every day. He was very much a legend. Cameron is saying that fire Howard and go after Nate Oates from Michigan and the Detroit area. Well, Nate Oates, who got blasted yesterday on the road at Oklahoma, is currently coaching Alabama, right? Like, you're going to get him. You think he's coming in with a to U of M? Look, I get that. You can call for Juwan Howard. I'm going to say this myself. I know it's a tough day to do this, and I might sound like an idiot to you and everything else. I would not fire Juwan Howard after this season. I would give him another year at least. Now, if we're sitting here at this time next year and the things look as bleak as it is right now, well, then the seat is hot. And I would then suggest making a move or the possibility of a move if things look like this. But we can talk about it right now, but they're not going to get Nate Oates after this season. I don't think they should. But maybe, there'll be such a push by Michigan basketball fans that, there could be. So you never say never. And like Cameron, maybe there's some blow up with Juwan, something like that happens. Well, then I could see it. I'm talking about if, we don't have anything off the floor. Hadley says at this rate, if I were Michigan, I wouldn't even accept an NIT bid. Hadley, the great Hadley getting in, and pulling out the NIT. It's a little bit too early for me to think about NIT, but let me think about it. So Michigan, you have to have a 500 record, right, to get into the NIT. That's first things first. And Michigan is at 11-10 right now. Will they be eligible, Hadley, for an NIT bid? Look, that's a sad thing to think about, NIT and everything else. But if Michigan was eligible to play in the NIT, I would take an NIT bid. No, it's not fun. It's, it's the nobody invited or no interest tournament, I think is what the acronym stands for. But considering that you do have Doug McDaniel and Terrace Reed, getting those guys more games in a tournament setting, maybe you win a game or two or whatever else. NIT, if that's Hadley bringing up the NIT. I hadn't thought about it, but yeah, I'm not turning down an NIT bid today. Hadley, I don't want to, think about the NIT, but you brought it up. Cameron says they would be lucky if they get invited to the NIT. All right. You're right. I mean, of course. You guys are all right about that. Well, let's look at that upcoming schedule, see if it looks any better. See if we see any W's on there. This coming Thursday, Michigan is going to be in Evanston taking on Northwestern. That's a 7 o'clock tip. I watched Northwestern noon yesterday dismantle Minnesota. That's going to be a tough game. Heading into today, I'm thinking, hey, Michigan can go to Penn State, win that game. They can go to Northwestern and win that game. They can beat Northwestern. Let's not make it sound like they're, going to take on, the 96 Bulls or something in Chicago. They're just going to Evanston, Good backcourt for the Cats. If I had to say right now, I would think Michigan would lose that game. A week from today, Michigan versus Ohio State. Hey, if it was football, I'd be talking about winning the game. If Michigan was playing Ohio State in football, I'd like Michigan to beat Ohio State in football next year. That game is going to be in Ann Arbor. I don't feel as confident, or Ohio State's not all that good of a team, though. If Michigan loses that game, then I think you can, and you might want to already, today you might want to be sticking the fork in them. But if they lose to Ohio State, that would really be. If they lose to the Northwestern, or they lose to Ohio State at home, the fat lady's singing, so's the fat guy, and everything else that you'd want to put in there, that would be bad. I think they're going to beat Ohio State, just based on it being Ohio State and Ohio State not being that good and it being in Ann Arbor. And then here's a dub, at least on paper. Watch it. Watch yourself. Wednesday, February the 8th is versus Nebraska. That's a dub. That's the thing here. Michigan, and now it seems ridiculous when you get beat by 22 in the way they play today. It was a winnable game today. Thursday's a winnable game. A week from today, at home, winnable. They should beat Nebraska. If Michigan could have won today, now I'm playing the what-if game, and it's not happening. But then you start saying, hey, Northwestern would have been 2 in a row. Ohio State 3 in a row. Nebraska 4 in a row. Oh, Michigan would have been, you'd have been talking about them getting into the tournament, being on the bubble, being one of those last 4 teams in, but not now. P. Maximus weighing in, saying Hunter is definitely gone. He didn't expect these results. Every time somebody talks about Hunter going somewhere, somebody says, where's he going? Like, is he going pro? Like, he's not going to get drafted, but maybe he'll go to Europe or something like that. I don't know. Like, Hunter Dickinson's a good. He plateaued, unfortunately, it seems like. I really like Hunter Dickinson. He was tremendous as a freshman. He had all those players around him, which just allowed him to do what, he did best, which is get down on that left block and go to work and be dominant. And then, last year he started going outside and shooting, but he looks like the player that I saw last year. And at times, it's even like he's taking a step back, and he's, at times he's dominant, but then, I want even more. As much as Dickinson, we can go to a lot of the players, and it's not his fault or anything else totally, but he is the leader and supposed to be the best player on the team, and he could even play a little bit better. As much as I like Jet Howard, who was tremendous today, especially in the first half, coming back from that ankle injury. Jet plays a game like just an AAU / G League / NBA game. He's coming down and I don't know how much better he's made. He provides points, which is good and something Michigan's not very good at, but I don't know. Is he making his teammates better? He's a nice player to have, but and when I'm knocking the 2 best players, then then you're kind of where you're at. So I hear you, though, what you're saying with Hunter. Mike DeCourcy, was watching the Big Ten pregame before Michigan and Penn State today, and DeCourcy put up his tournament projections heading into this afternoon's game. This is not after the loss to Penn State, but the Big Ten Network's Mike DeCourcy's NCAA tournament projections. Purdue, who blasted Michigan State today, or they were. I didn't get a final on that one. I can. State, roared back in there. But Purdue, Rutgers, Michigan State, Indiana, Illinois, Northwestern, all in Maryland, Iowa, and Wisconsin. That's 9 teams, according to DeCourcy, that would be getting into the tournament. And then Penn State would be in the first 4 out. And Ohio State, who Michigan plays a week from today, would be the next 4 out. So 9, 10, 11 teams right on the bubble. And if you look, it's consistent. I remember 2 weeks ago I was looking, and I was like, 10 teams in the Big Ten? That seems crazy, but that's what all these bracketologists are saying, that, the Big Ten has that many teams. Not all that many good teams. Purdue's really good. Is anybody else any good? You had a bunch of kind of mids about getting into the tournament anyways. And then even Penn State and Ohio State, is the Big Ten going to get 11 teams in there? And then obviously in this graphic, you don't see the Block M with Michigan because they are not in the tournament right now. They need a bunch of W's. Hadley asking the question, why did Hunter disappear today? I expected a much better performance versus Penn State than he did against Purdue. Well, he played well against Penn State in the victory, whatever it was, 10 days ago. Teams are doubling Hunter Dickinson. They're not letting him get the ball down on the left block. They'll let him get it in other spots, and then he looks a little uncomfortable, and he even loses his place on the floor because I think he's expecting some double teams to come, and then he turns, and then he kind of just is rushing it. It's unless you are going to be able to have guys like, teams are just digging the hell out of them. Like they're not worried. Teams are not worried about Terrence Williams II, standing out on the 3-point line. They're like, go ahead. It's harsh. A lot of Michigan, they're not worried about Doug McDaniel shooting a 3-pointer if they're down digging, if the point guard goes down and finds Hunter Dickinson. They're worried about Jet. They're not even worried about Joey Baker. I mean, Michigan, unfortunately, Hadley, they're a bunch of self-checks from out from the 3-point line. You don't want to be that way. Who's going to shoot? Who do you want to shoot from out there? Jet. Anybody else? They got one 3-point shooter. Maybe Kobe. Maybe Kobe Buffkin. I always talk about the players, and it seems like I forget Kobe Buffkin. I like Kobe Buffkin. People not happy. I'm putting up the feedback. It would be even sad to read what people are saying. Fire back Luke Yaklich or his doppelganger. Yeah, well, Michigan needs a Luke Yaklich type on offense, and they need a Luke Yaklich type on offense too. They need one on defense and an offense. Here's another a bring back Beeline. Bring back Beeline. Wouldn't that be something? I don't think that's happening. It sounds pretty wild, but I'm in for wild stuff. Bring back John Beeline. How about that? Does it sound crazy? There's like no chance, right, of that happening. Like Juwan, do you say, does he deserve another year? It seems to be that he deserves another year. Well, what kind of power move could that be if you were Ward Manuel and behind the scenes? You said, Juwan, get him a soft landing in the NBA. Where I don't think he's going to get a head coaching job in the NBA, but get him a nice assistant job in the NBA, and then bring back John Beeline. I don't know. I'm just talking. I'm talking about something that I don't know does it have any chance. It would be such a popular move. but it has no chance. Does it even have a 0.5% chance of happening? So I'll bring out the 100 Michigan fans again. If you asked 100 Michigan fans if it would be possible, if they could do it, would they do it? How many of the 100 would say that they would do it? It feels like I would do it. I would do that, even though I think Juwan deserves another year. But, when it's going this way and it doesn't look good, sometimes, you strike a little bit early rather than, waiting where it would be too late. Yeah, I don't think so. Hadley asking about do I think Michigan's first road win in the remaining games? I don't know, Hadley. I think they can win on Thursday at Northwestern. I know you're kidding about bringing in John Beeline, but I just went through the scenario, and it actually sounds like it's fun to think about. There's Trevor, lambasting them. They deserve it. All right, let's look at the numbers. That's not any fun. Michigan shot in this game. Speaking of not fun, let's look at some of those numbers for the Wolverines. Let's look at it. They shot 42% for the game, 27% from downtown, 62.5%. If you're looking for the positives, here they are. Jet Howard had 18 points in the first half, ended up with 21. Terrace Reed Jr. was 50% from the free throw line. That's a positive because he was at one point, 21% in this game. So when he missed his first, so he made a free throw. That's a positive for Michigan. Penn State shot 43% from downtown, 54% from the field, 80% from the free throw line. And Penn State, since joining the Big Ten, their biggest margin of victory over Michigan was 1999 when they beat the Wolverines by 19 points. They beat them by 22 today. So the largest margin of victory by Penn State ever over a Michigan team. Going to be some stuff like that. Let's look at those numbers. Mention that Jet had 21, 5 of 7 from downtown. Kobe Buffkin, 8 and 6, did not make a three-pointer in this game. TW2 had 7 points, 6 boards. Ooh, Hunter Dickinson, 6 points, 2 boards. Wow. I didn't realize it was that bad. Hunter Dickinson, 6 points, 2 boards. That's bad. Doug McDaniel had 4 points and 2. Jace off the bench had 6 points and 3 rebounds. Will Cheddar got in late, scored 4 points. Terrace Reed made that free throw that I talked about, had 3 points, 4 rebounds. And then Joey Buckets, 0 from downtown, but ended up with a deuce and ended up getting 3 boards. And Barnes with a goose egg next to his name. Wow, Hunter Dickinson. That's not good. Yeah, it just goes on and on. If we're taking the feedback on this one, poor performance, bad day. Michigan will try to see if they can. They got a couple of days to go, and let's say you burn the tape, move on, turn the page, get to Thursday against Northwestern and get themselves a road win, and see if they can turn this thing around. Or, start watching women's basketball. They're still in it, as it's been pointed out to me a number of times. The final in this one, 83-61. Thanks, everybody, for watching. I'm here after every Michigan basketball game. And then at 1 o'clock weekdays, talking about the latest in Michigan sports. There'll be some football to get into. A big recruiting weekend. We'll see how the Wolverines fared there. And they've got a quarterback coach. So looks like the staff is good to go. We'll talk about that as well tomorrow at 1. Until then, everybody have a great rest of their day. I'm going to watch some football. I don't know about you. Take care.